Okay. I guess I'm using this one here. So, welcome to this presentation. I'm going to talk mostly about the Finnish game industry through some statistics and data. And I will also touch upon the Nordic game industry with some very high-level statistics and comparisons. And I will finish off with talking about the investment company that I'm a part of and the sort of investment criteria that we have. And I've only given this presentation once before, and then it took me 1 hour and 15 minutes to go through it. So I'm trying to compress it, all the 100 slides, down to 40 minutes. Plus, there will be time for questions, if we can invent a time machine, I think. Okay, so let's go. First, I want to thank KP Hiltunen and Neo Games for providing many of the underlying data. They collect this data all the time, of course, and they have the most recent up-to-date materials. I also got in touch with most of the companies mentioned here, just to double-check that the numbers are correct. But as a disclaimer, there are still errors and missing information. And for that, I'm truly sorry. So if there's someone here in the audience who thinks that I'm talking BS, then please correct me after the presentation, and I will update it for the next time when I'm going to present it. All right. So first, a couple of very short words about me. So I started 21 years ago, so I'm one of the dinosaurs. And I've been involved with several companies and initiatives over the years. And I'm just going to very briefly run through them, not going to talk about any specifics. But each of these, I was in some kind of co-founding and leadership capacity. So, but of course, before all this, I was part of the demo scene. How many here has ever heard of the term demo scene? Raise your hand. Excellent. I feel at home. So yeah. So my first company was Remedy when I was 21 years old. That's about it. Then FutureMark came out of that. I was part of getting that going. Then in 2000, I founded Fat Hammer. 2007, Recoil Games. 2012 was the time for Game Brewery, which was a sort of game accelerator program. It's actually currently running in Oulu, at least. Helsinki Gameworks was founded in 2014, and then 2 months later it was acquired by Next Games. So I spent some time there. And during those times I also was a co-founder of Sisu Game Ventures. There's 2 other partners as well. And then last year I founded Armada with 10 other guys, and I'm currently the CEO there. So that's very briefly my background. So mostly on the business side throughout my entire career because, well, I tried to be an artist and game designer and whatnot, but I ended up being a business guy. I guess that's okay. So, the Nordic region. So, some statistics you may or may not know. This is sort of ranked in terms of the total revenue of the game industry in each country, including some other statistics. So, Norway, and this is actually 2014 figures. I've been contacting people in the Norwegian game industry to get the latest information, but they don't have more recent data than this. The industry is so small in their country that they don't really have enough people, I guess, gathering this information. But anyway, 40 million euros total, and mostly from Funcom and several companies. But they do have quite a few companies, so 60, it's pretty good, and almost 500 people working there. But for a country this big, it's surprisingly, I would say, undeveloped still. Then Iceland only has 330,000 people. It's a very small country. And its industry is pretty big, especially per capita. And of course, the big company in Iceland is CCP, but there are also others. And next is Denmark. That's also 2014 figures. And there, of course, the most known company is probably IO Interactive, and of course with the Hitman series and all that. And then next comes Sweden with 1.2 billion in revenues, and they have companies such as Mojang and King, and a lot of AAA console studios as well. And they need armies of people creating those big games, so that's why they have so many employees. Finland is currently leading in terms of revenue, and since we are focused mostly on mobile games, you don't need that many people, but it's growing rapidly. In terms of the amount of companies, we are also #1 at the moment. But there's like this age-old competition between Finland and Sweden. So it's going to be interesting to see how things develop. If we put all these metrics side by side, it looks like this in terms of revenue. As for amount of companies. And of course, these numbers are for this year already living all the time, so it's impossible to predict what's going to happen this year. And as in terms of employees, that's what it looks like. And I also wanted to highlight one thing, this per capita index. So this is just an arbitrary number I came up with, but it sort of enables you to see or compare these countries together. So Norway has an index of 0.007. Denmark is already a bit higher. And Sweden, Iceland. So they're punching above their weight quite aggressively and growing very fast actually there. I was there last year and it's amazing on many levels. And then there's Finland. So let's see next year when we have new figures how this has changed. Then let's continue over to Finland, my sort of favorite subject, as can be maybe seen through these things. So when I talk about the Finnish game industry, I want to always explain the sort of DNA that the whole industry is based on. There are certain elements that have happened since the beginning of the game industry, which sort of are part of even the current industry, and it's sort of a never-ending loop. Sisu, the Finnish word for ultimate perseverance. This is how this entire country was built and how it got independent and all that. I could go back into the times of wars, how we rebuilt the country and paid all the war debts and all that. But everything that's good in Finland is based on Sisu. So if you've never heard the word, now is the time. And then the demo scene, of course. All the early game companies were founded by demo scene actives. And then collaboration. So from the very get-go, we've always been friends with each other. When I started, we had 2 game companies and 30 guys in those companies combined. And we all knew each other. And back then already we started having these monthly pub evenings where we shared information openly. And that has continued to this day. And that's one of the biggest strengths we have. And it's pretty unique to Finland. I've traveled to multiple countries and gotten to know their game industries, but I haven't found it anywhere else in this extent. And then of course Tekes, which is our little unfair advantage here. So public support, that's been a really great tool, almost like 15 years now. You can, if you get VC financing, you can get also money from Tekes, and it essentially doubles your financing, and that's just, it's pretty amazing and crazy. And Nokia is probably the biggest factor in creating the sort of mobile DNA for Finland, even if Nokia doesn't do mobile anymore themselves. But back in the day, when the early phones with Snake and everything came, Finnish people started thinking about mobiles more than other people, other nations. And the early mobile game industry started already in the late 90s. So. And then about 10 years ago, we started having sort of what I would call success. So before that, there wasn't much mainstream success. So in the Finnish sort of mainstream media, the game industry was thought of more like just a joke. But once there were like these acquisitions happening in a row where foreign companies bought Finnish companies for tens of millions, then people started to take notice and they were, okay, maybe there's something to it. And usually after success, more success follows. And of course, everybody knows, the success stories, the mega success stories that we've had. Now the big question, of course, is what follows after a mega success? Giga, Tera, I don't know. And there's a lot of companies in Finland now that hopefully will continue this trend upwards. So, including Armada, of course. Sorry. So anyway, and here I list all the companies we have. So read them quickly because we won't be looking at this long. If your company isn't there, I'm so sorry. But this list lives every day. There's no current list. It would be impossible to do. Just during this last week, I've heard of 2 new startups which are in stealth mode. And there's probably a couple of people here in this room who have a startup that I don't know about. Soon I will. Anyway, let's continue. Regional breakdown. The Finnish game industry originated from Joensuu originally, but quickly into Helsinki. And for a long time, we only had companies in Helsinki. And then it started spreading into other big cities like Tampere and Oulu. But nowadays, it's spread across the entire country, pretty even. Well, not evenly, but like almost in every big county, there's at least one game studio. And I think that's pretty cool. It wasn't looking like this, let's say, only 4 or 5 years ago. Then we still had only like 8 cities, and now it's like spread. And I think this is a really cool development. As for platform split, I mentioned that Finland is mostly mobile, but there's also PC and console development. Can someone guess how much mobile is in terms of percentage?
80.
Someone's seen this before. Fuck you. So yes, but PC, the same people should know this answer as well.
12.
12? Haha. So that leaves only 3% for like pure console development. There's very little of that in terms of revenue. In terms of employees, it's maybe not like this, but it's quite close, I would say. So Finland is still like mostly a mobile game development company. But let's be honest. So Supercell plays a huge role in many things, on many layers. In terms of revenue, if you compare Supercell with the next biggest company, that's what it looks like. Just illustrating something here. And the third biggest company, the fourth biggest company, fifth, sixth, the next 6, and then all the rest. To be humble, Armada is still in the all the rest category. So that's what it looks like, and that's it's a pretty interesting picture. But what if there was no Supercell? How would these numbers look like? So we've been tracking the revenue, the total revenue of the Finnish game industry through Neo Games for quite some time. If we put the numbers here without Supercell included, it looks like this. And that's all good. 500 million, that's okay. It would be less than half of Sweden, so that can't be. But of course we do have Supercell, so why even think about it like that? It's kind of stupid. So when Supercell started making money, the first time they made it was 78 million euros, and we were like, what the fuck happened? And we were like, okay, it cannot grow any bigger than that. It's impossible, right? Almost 10x the next year. And then we're like, okay, that has to be the cap. There's no way anything bigger could ever take place. Wrong. And again. So this is Supercell country. But we are, lucky to be here. So last year, the entire video game market was about 90 billion, and Finland's share was 3%. And if we look at only the mobile portion of it, which is like 1/3, Finland was 9%. So for a small country up in the north, I think it's pretty good. And this is something I've also been tracking as a little hobby of mine, the spawn of Rovio. So this lists all the companies that have founders who previously worked at Rovio in some semi-significant or significant role. Can somebody guess how many companies I will list here?
20.
90, somebody said. 20 is very close, 19 is quite close. So, but yeah, let's list all of them. This is more or less chronological order. And not all the founders of these companies were from Rovio, maybe one only. As you can see, a lot of cool stuff has come out of people who spent time at Rovio.
21.
What?
21.
21, yes. The latest that I heard of is Fast Travel Games from Stockholm, the ex-Rovio Stockholm, the CEO guy, or whoever was running it, left and started a VR company. Okay, but let's go on. So now we get to the sort of meat of the presentation, I guess. So the top 30 game companies of Finland based on revenue and perceived game sales. I will explain what that means in a moment. So number 1 is obvious. Number 2 is also obvious. But number 3, and this is probably not obvious to some of you, but it's a company operating mostly in the games industry, and we all use their tools all the time. They have a big operation in Finland. Unity, yes. And that's the portion of the revenues that comes to Finland. The entire company is more than 1 billion, and it's like 1,000 employees. The Finnish office is already 110 people that I just heard, and it's growing the fastest out of all of their different offices. And then next, EA Track 20. And they don't actually report their game revenue in Finland because they're part of EA. But the game that they made is SimCity Build It. And it generated 100 million in revenues last year. You can check this from App Annie if you want. And these guys don't get enough credit for this. They are mostly Finnish guys and a game made in Finland, and I think they should be highlighted in this list. After that, Sulake, yes, they are still around. They started selling virtual clothes in their game, not just furniture, last year, and it's picking up pace again. Then Red Lynx, they've been around for a long time. Seriously, going upwards all the time. Fingersoft, of course, and Remedy. Next games, this is the top 10, and now on 11th we have Colossal Order, and of course they made the Cities Skylines game. That was a huge hit on Steam. Housemarque, the oldest game company in Finland. Huge respect for those guys. G-Cluster, has anyone heard of this company? Raise your hand. Oh, 3, 4. Interesting. They create this game streaming service or platform, and they've been around for 15 years. One of the most sisukas company I've ever seen. Crazy guys. Then Frozen Byte and Secret Exit. They only have 3 guys and they made the list. So I think it's pretty interesting. So their company is based on pushing people down the stairs. So that's an interesting thing. The next 15 companies I'm just gonna put here. If you want to take a photo of this, do it now, because I will make this available later, publicly somehow, somewhere, but not right away. And this should be pretty accurate information. On the next page, I have the top 30 list based on the amount of employees each company has. I think that's less relevant, but it also gives you more information or sort of more insight into the situation. And the total revenue of all of these companies on this list is 2.6 billion and more, a little more. And the total headcount is 1,718 people out of the 2,700 working in Finnish game industry. So, top 30 based on headcount. So Rovio is number 1 still. Supercell is quickly also growing. Then we have Red Lynx, Remedy, Unity, Sulake. So we have 6 companies that are above 100. In Sweden, they have multiple companies that are over 200. So it's a bit different looking here. So all of this information is about 2 months old, so I'm not going to update it for a couple of companies because, well, they've already grown bigger than this, but I think it's fair to keep it like this. And the jobs in these companies is 1,813. And this includes many of the companies that are well funded, but are not making much revenues or any revenues yet. Okay. Let's continue. So some success stories of the Finnish game industry. This should be pretty obvious. I'm only listing those companies that still exist today. So Sulake, Rovio, Supercell. It also includes how much they raised money before they were acquired. And of course, Amplifier, which was acquired by Unity, is the Unity Finnish office. Series, of course, and Next Games, they are doing really well. And Kopla Games, of course, was acquired recently. And then there's the company TickBits, which I forgot to put here. Sorry for those guys. And then other success stories which were not VC funded. And this is a unique setup how the EA office in Finland came to be. It was some Digital Chocolate guys who knew certain people at EA who had been at Digital Chocolate before, and they sort of arranged to start a company from scratch in Finland. Almost like a startup, but it would be owned by EA from the get-go. It's a very unique way to found a company. And those guys have become superstars within EA. And then, of course, Red Lynx is a success story acquired by Ubisoft some years ago. And as far as I know, they didn't raise much financing or VC money, or any of it. Remedy certainly hasn't, as far as I know. Fingersoft, not either. Same with Housemarque. Colossal Order. Okay, I went a bit too far. But yeah, these I would consider success stories to some extent. The next lists what I would say future potential. So companies that are founded by some really talented people who are backed by some VC funding. And total funding in the last 3 years into these companies is now 50 million. And of course, just today there was a big announcement about one company which is in the list. So Mindfield Games, a VR game company, 300K. Kukouri, Kokoi, Dazzle Rocks, Shark Punch, Ministry of Games. That's actually 2 million, but I didn't know the facts. Traplight, Reforged, Everywhere Games, sorry. Armada, Boom Lagoon, Future Play, they recently raised 2.5 million more, just like a week ago or something, or announced it at least. Small Giant, Critical Force, this was the big news today. They raised 4 million euros from NHN in Korea to create the best FPS game on a mobile. And then only a couple of companies who have more funding. It's Nitro Games in Kotka, PlayRaven, and Crank Crew. So these companies at least have a fair chance of making it. And of course there are more companies being created all the time. So next month, if I would be giving this presentation, there might be new companies on this list. Okay, let's go forward. So studio breakdown, I've split all the companies into 3 different categories. Number 1 is companies that have at least 100 million in revenues. We all know which 4 companies those are. Category 2 are companies that have either millions in revenue or funding. 35 companies fit that bill. And category 3 are companies that have less funding or revenues than that, but are somehow otherwise capable of making this list. This is my personal judgment. So, of course, those we already knew. And also these are the companies that have more than 1 million in revenues. And these are the companies that have more than 1 million in funding. And here we have the companies that I think otherwise have potential, are they acquired or not. This list doesn't take that into account. So I'm constantly talking with most of these companies on this list and seeing if they are ready to move to the next level. And if I think that's the case, then I will do my best to help them. But my time is super limited, so I can't help everyone all the time, unfortunately. So let's go to Sisu. I'll explain what Sisu is all about. So Sisu is a small investment company that's focused on the games industry in the Nordics. We only do games or game-related investments. And we like to join the company early on at the founding stage. And so it's completely okay to contact me when you are only thinking about setting up a game studio. And we invest about 50K when we invest. It's not much, but at that early stage, coupled with tech support, it's enough for you to get going. So I founded Sisu with Muafak Ahmed, who was elected Business Angel of the Year last year in Finland. He's a long-time serial entrepreneur and an investor. And Paul Bragil. He's the sanest, most dry person I've ever met. And yes, he hacked his way into the Olympics, finally. And Paul has 6 or 7 funds around the world. He's an early investor in Uber, for example. And yeah, I've been friends with him since the demo scene days. The whole idea for Sisu came in my sauna with Paul. It was a very steamy experience. But let's not go there. Too much information, I know. Sorry about that. Okay, so investment criteria. There are 3 things that we look at when we are about to invest or when we are considering to invest. It's team, and did I mention team? And if the team has the right attitude and skills, what they will also create for us to look at is a demo. If the demo sucks, like they most usually do, I will tell the team that, hey, come back a few months later with a new demo. It's simple as that. We are early validators, and we also try to give feedback on even game design if the team is ready for that. Some teams are, some are not. But yeah, it's very simple. And I mentioned if the team has the right skills. So skills needed for success. Of course, you have these very standard basic things that you need to have in the team, otherwise you won't be able to create a game, no matter how much you try. This is all very normal, basic stuff. And in addition to this, it would be beneficial if there's someone who understands the business side, marketing, numbers, all these things, so like these things. And usually the lead programmer is the guy who is also the CEO, and he has to do and take care of all this crap. He'd rather be just making games. And usually the best resource in the founding team is then occupied by this nonsense. So you should probably have a guy or girl who takes care of all this bullshit for you so that you can focus on the game. Because the game is still the main thing. I'm sure you can find a co-founder who can handle this, even if that person is from outside of the game industry. It's the same thing basically, no problems. If you're also working on a free-to-play mobile game, like most companies that I meet are, then you have some other stuff to think about that has to be understood in the team, that we need these things. Maybe not initially when you start, but eventually you need these things, all of these things. And these are lovely, lovely things. We didn't used to have any of this crap when the publishers were handling all this. But now, since we have become publishers ourselves, we need to understand all of this. And it's a challenge.
Company culture? It's missing?
What?
Company culture is missing?
How many what's missing?
Company culture.
Company culture. Is that a skill? I guess it is. Well, it's more like the attitude thing. So attitude has to be that people need to have some ambition in the team, and they need to be able to be crazy, to be entrepreneurs. A sane person would not start a company. It just goes against logic. And you need to have a perfect balance of creativity, new ideas, innovation, and business sense. So if you are too indie, no investor in their right mind would give you any money. I'm sorry. That's how it works in the real world.
Sorry, can I take a picture of the previous screen?
The previous slide. Sure, why not? Okay. Anyone else? Now's your moment.
Yeah, I will mind.
Fuck you. Okay, we are nearing the end. So just one more slide. So our portfolio, what it looks like right now. You can also find it on my LinkedIn page. It's not a secret, but we don't have a web presence or social media presence. We might open a Facebook channel just to put this presentation there. So we have roughly split our portfolio into 3 categories. And our most recent investment is in a company called Third Eye Studios. How many of you have ever heard of this company? 4 or 5 people, okay. You haven't? The fucking founder. Yeah, so they are focused on high-end VR games. Super cool stuff. So then we also have Resolution Games in Stockholm, Tommy Palm's company. He was giving a keynote earlier. Solfar in Iceland, also high-end VR stuff, ex-CCP guys. Visor, which is creating a web VR platform, super cool stuff. Then we have game investments, Dazzle Rocks, Copla Games, Reforged, Theory, Combo Breaker, Epic Owl, Armada, of course, Small Giant, Snowprint Studios, and Next Games. As you can see, it's mostly mobile game development, but Theory is, and Combo Breaker, they are also doing other things, or mostly other things, but also mobile. And then on the sort of services or platform side, we have Umbra. Umbra is, of course, a visibility optimization and streaming and whatever mega platform. And Singa is a gamified karaoke service or app. It's the best, so try it. Oddshot is focused on the sort of esports streaming industry. Super cool stuff there as well. And Shark Punch, they have the Playfield.io sort of Steam type platform, but for game jam games. So that's the portfolio at the moment. So now we have 4 minutes and 32 seconds for questions. No questions? Okay. Any questions? No, I was joking, come on.
Biggest trends in the gaming industry at the moment? If you don't mention VR, I wouldn't hear it.
He was asking what are the biggest trends in the games industry right now, and I cannot say VR. Well, AR, I don't know. It's the same stuff. All the same platforms are still very strong. All of them are growing. And of course, with VR, nobody knows when it's actually going to start. So hopefully soon. But I would say that in the mobile space especially, it's become super competitive, like super, super competitive. So the only thing that you can, differentiate yourself with is some true innovation. And that's super hard to come by. If you look at the top grossing list or the ads of new games, it's all the fucking same shit all the time. Just put in a slightly more prettier package. I think that's super boring.
And so,
Hi. First of all, really like the idea of kind of having a local fund. Just kind of wondered, what's the motivation behind it? Is it because you want to kind of create an ecosystem here, or is it because you want to represent these games to an international kind of community? Like, how you kind of structuring
It's both
that?
of those things, and the whole thing started when I started growing more and more impatient or sort of frustrated that lots of these startup dudes and dudettes were coming to me and asking if I could help them getting financing. I was really helpless. I don't have any money myself. I wasted all my Remedy money back in the day. So I'm like, I can't really help. I can promote you to other guys, but they won't take my word seriously if I'm not an investor myself. So that was the real motivation behind it, to sort of have a little bit of money and then put those into those carefully selected companies so that we can sort of validate them for the big boys who are constantly looking at this country and wishing to do bets here. But they don't have the time or the connections to know what's really happening on the grassroots level. So there needs to be someone doing that work for them. So that's what we are trying to do.
Hi, Samuli.
Hello, Walid.
So I'm Walid from Aalto University. You said there's potential, and there's this list of companies that are going to grow. So, in your eyes, where do you see Finland in 5-10 years? I mean, in revenue.
In revenue?
Yes. So, do we see each other growing? Hockey stick, another one, 10 billion, 50 billion.
In 5 years, we will be hitting something between 4 and 6 billion, most likely, if the trends continue like this, and we get at least one more mega success story, which is possible, or semi-mega success story at least, I don't know. But yeah, I think I strongly believe that the trends will continue. We have lots of entrepreneurs that are doing it for the second, third, or fourth, or even fifth time now. So people are not leaving the industry even if they make an exit and make a lot of money. They are staying because they love it so much. Those are the people who will elevate the industry, one step at a time to a higher, level of existence. And that will not stop.
Okay, so what do we need to get there? I mean, what do you think we really need?
You want me to say that we need games industry business education, which we do.
No, I
of
don't
course
mean
we do that. We don't really have much of that yet.
I have a vision of what we need. It's not only that.
Yes, your vision is correct, sir.
It's not that. I'm not trying to sell my thing. I'm trying to...
I know. I'm just pulling your chains.
I really want... Yeah. Just really tell us, because I'm really passionate about this, and we can grow even bigger than that. But there are these puzzles missing, and
there's one thing that we lack in the country, and that's like serious VC funding. We have only a couple of investors who invest into games, and usually even they would like the London boys or some other country investors to come in and sort of validate and say that yes, this is cool. And then the Finnish investors who are super cautious will then, okay, maybe we can invest then. But then you don't really need the Finnish guys anymore if you have international money. So that's a sort of dilemma. We have Tekes, which is super great, but we don't have like VCs investing into games serious. We have a couple that do it, but we don't have someone who puts in like 10 million. That's one of the biggest things. And of course, a thing that's really slowing down the development, minus 50 seconds, fuck, is the amount of people. We don't have enough people here. And the schools are not producing enough graduates in this field. It's like 200-300 people per year that we can come up on our own. So we have to recruit from outside of Finland all the time. Like at Armada, we have 22 people, and we have 11 nationalities already now. We have fucking 5 guys from Netherlands. How fucked up is that? Sorry, guys. You were asking for it.
Have we got time for another question?
So, yeah, I should stop now.
We can take one more quick question.
You said that the only way to succeed in mobile is through innovation, but you also said that if you're a true indie, no one will invest in you. What's the difference? How is it, I guess indies, you're too...
So you're suggesting that people who have a business mind will not be able to produce anything new or innovative. Only the indies have that superpower. Well, in a way, you're right, of course. It's, when you have this, if you're thinking too much about business goals, then creativity is usually the second thing that you think about. So you have to have a perfect balance of these two things, and it's not easy to do. It's super hard. So, for example, at some game jams, I have seen some really cool game mechanics that I would have thought that, hey, this could be turned into the best free-to-play mobile game ever. But if I talk to the developers, they're like, I would never take this anywhere, and you cannot fucking touch it. Because you will make money with it. That's wrong. Damn hippies. So. Okay, cool.